I noticed the plants first because they looked better than they ever had under my care. Emma had been my flatmate for 6 weeks. She worked from home most days doing something with data analysis that she never really explained. I was out by 8 every morning and back around 7. The flat was a 2-bedroom terrace in Zone 3. Clean enough. Quiet. The kind of place where you're polite in the kitchen and keep your bedroom door closed. The plants were 4 succulents I'd bought from the market when I first moved in. I watered them sometimes. Not on a schedule. Just when I noticed the soil looked cracked, or when I felt guilty walking past them. They survived in that grey area between thriving and dying that most of my houseplants occupied. Then one Tuesday I came home, and they looked different. Plumper, greener. The soil was dark and even. I touched one of the leaves. It had that firm bounce healthy plants have. Emma was in the kitchen chopping vegetables. I asked if she'd watered them. She looked up and smiled. She said she'd noticed they looked a bit dry. She said she hoped I didn't mind. I said no, of course not, thank you. I meant it. It was kind. I went to my room and changed out of my work clothes and felt that small, warm feeling you get when someone does something thoughtful without being asked. It lasted about an hour. Then I forgot about it. She watered them again on Friday. I didn't notice until Sunday when I was making coffee and saw her crouched by the windowsill with a small green watering can I didn't recognize. She must have bought it herself. She looked so focused. Like she was performing a careful task she took seriously. That was when I realized I couldn't remember the last time I'd watered them. A week maybe. Possibly 2. I felt a flash of something like embarrassment. She was taking care of something I'd neglected. I thanked her again. She said it was no trouble. She said she was on a schedule now, Tuesdays and Fridays. She said consistency was important for succulents. I didn't know that. I nodded like I did. I told her that made sense. She went back to watering. I drank my coffee and watched her for a moment. She had this way of tilting her head when she concentrated. It made her look younger than 31. The next week she mentioned the mugs. I'd left 2 in my room. Just 2. Both on my bedside table where I'd forgotten them after late nights scrolling on my phone. She brought them down on Wednesday morning before I left for work. She put them in the sink and ran the tap. She said she was doing a load in the dishwasher anyway, so she'd add them. I apologized. I said I'd meant to bring them down. She said it was fine. She said she didn't mind. Her voice was light, easy. I finished my tea and left for work, and didn't think about it again until that evening when I saw all my mugs lined up clean in the cupboard. She'd arranged them by size. The following week I left a mug in my room on purpose. Not exactly on purpose. I just didn't bring it down. I wanted to see if I'd remember on my own. I forgot. She brought it down Thursday morning. She didn't say anything. She just rinsed it and added it to the dishwasher. I felt something strange then. Not gratitude exactly. Something closer to obligation. She started asking what I wanted for dinner. She'd text me around 5. White fish or chicken, pasta or rice. It felt easier to just pick one than to say I'd sort myself out. The food was always good. One evening I got home early and told her I'd pick something up on the way. She looked confused. "I've already bought salmon. It'll go off if we don't eat it tonight," she said. I said okay. I ate the salmon. It was good. She started doing small loads of laundry. She'd fold them and leave them on my bed in neat squares. I told my friend Claire about it over drinks. I said my flatmate was really helpful, almost too helpful. Claire laughed. "You should be grateful," she said. I agreed. I said I was grateful. I ordered another gin and tonic and changed the subject. The thing about small helps is they don't feel like an imposition. They feel like kindness. And you can't resent kindness without seeming difficult. So I didn't say anything when Emma started opening my post. Not reading it. Just opening the envelopes and leaving the contents on the kitchen table in a small stack. She said she was tidying. She said it looked neater that way. I came home one day to find she'd rearranged the living room. Just slightly. The sofa was angled differently. The lamp was moved. She said the layout felt better for light. She asked if I liked it. I said yes. I did like it. It did feel better. But I hadn't been asked before she did it. She started buying things for the flat. Small things. A new bath mat, a better kettle, wooden hangers for the coats. She'd just bring them home and install them without mentioning it first. I'd notice them and say thank you. She'd say she thought we needed them. She always split the cost. She always sent me a PayPal request. I always paid. I stopped suggesting things. It seemed pointless. She'd already thought of them, and her suggestions were always better than mine. More practical. Better quality. I started to feel like I wasn't very good at noticing what the flat needed. I'd lived alone for 3 years before Emma moved in. I'd managed fine, but now it felt like I'd been managing badly. She asked if I wanted her to book my dental checkup. I'd mentioned it once in passing, said I kept forgetting. She said she'd seen a reminder on my phone when it buzzed on the counter. She said she could call for me if I wanted. I said no thank you. I said I'd do it. She said okay. 2 weeks later she asked again. She said she'd noticed I still hadn't booked it. I felt caught. I hadn't booked it. I'd been busy. I'd been tired. I said fine, yes, thank you. She booked it that afternoon. She put it in my phone calendar. She set a reminder for the day before. She color-coded it green. I went to the appointment. The dentist said I needed a small filling. I came home and told Emma. She said she'd thought so. She said my breath had been slightly off in the mornings. She said it so casually, like commenting on the weather. I felt my face go hot. I went to my room and closed the door. I sat on my bed and looked at my phone. The calendar was full of entries I hadn't made. Doctor appointment in 3 weeks. Car MOT next month. Haircut in 2 days. All color-coded. All with reminders. All organized by someone who wasn't me. I opened my notes app. There were lists I didn't remember creating. Shopping list, cleaning schedule, meal plan. I clicked on the meal plan. It was detailed, breakfast, lunch, and dinner for 2 weeks, nutritionally balanced, varied protein sources. I scrolled through it. I couldn't remember the last time I'd chosen my own meal. She started commenting on small things. My posture at the kitchen table. The way I left the bathroom after a shower. The fact that I kept forgetting to take my vitamins. She wasn't mean. She was never mean. She'd say it gently, observationally, like she was pointing out something I'd want to know. I started noticing how much I said thank you. I counted one day. 14 times. Thank you for watering the plants. Thank you for doing the dishes. Thank you for picking up the package. Thank you for reminding me. Thank you, thank you, thank you. My voice started to sound strange to me when I said it. One morning I came into the kitchen and Emma handed me a vitamin. Just handed it to me with a glass of water. She said I'd forgotten again. I took it. I swallowed it. I said thank you. She smiled and went back to her laptop. I stood there holding the empty glass, wondering when I'd stopped keeping track of my own vitamins. Claire asked if I wanted to go away for the weekend. A cottage in Devon. I said yes. I told Emma I'd be gone Saturday and Sunday. She asked if I'd taken my car in for the service I'd mentioned. I said no, not yet. She said I shouldn't drive long distances without getting it checked. She said she'd call the garage for me. I told her I'd do it. She said she didn't mind. She said she was already calling about her own car. I let her do it. She booked me in for Friday morning. She texted me the appointment time. She added it to my phone calendar. She set a reminder for Thursday night. She color-coded it blue. Thursday evening she reminded me about the garage. She asked if I needed her to go with me. She said she could follow in her car and give me a lift back. I said no. I said I'd just wait there. She looked uncertain. She said it might take a while. I said I'd be fine. She said okay. She said to text her when I was done. Friday morning I took the car in. The mechanic said it would be about 2 hours. I sat in the waiting room with terrible coffee and a magazine from 3 months ago. My phone buzzed. Emma asking if everything was okay. I replied yes. She sent back a thumbs up and a reminder to ask about the brake pads. I went to Devon. The cottage was fine. I felt strange the whole time, like I'd forgotten something. Claire asked if I was okay. I said yes. I kept checking my phone. Emma had texted once asking if I'd remembered to lock my bedroom window. I had. I texted back. She sent a thumbs up. Claire and I went for a walk on the Saturday afternoon. The countryside was grey and wet. We stopped at a pub. She ordered fish and chips. I ordered the same. She asked if I was sure. She said I usually got the burger. I looked at the menu again. I couldn't remember what I usually got. I said the fish was fine. We ate and talked about work, and her boyfriend and a holiday she was planning. I kept losing the thread of conversation. She'd ask me something, and I'd have to ask her to repeat it. She said I seemed distracted. I said I was tired. She said I looked tired. She said I looked different somehow. I asked her what she meant. She put her fork down. She said I seemed smaller. Not physically. Just smaller. Like I was taking up less space. She said it was probably nothing. She said maybe she was imagining it. But she kept looking at me like she was trying to work something out. When I got home Sunday evening, Emma had cleaned the whole flat. I mean properly cleaned, hoovered, mopped, dusted. The bathroom smelled like bleach. My bedroom door was open. I never left it open. I walked in. My bed was made. The books on my nightstand were stacked. My clothes were folded. My makeup on the dresser was arranged in a line. She was in the kitchen making tea. She asked if I'd had a nice time. I said yes. I asked if she'd been in my room. She said yes. She said it looked like it needed a proper clean. She said she'd just tidied up a bit. She handed me a mug of tea. She said she'd made it how I liked it. Weak, no sugar, barely any milk. I drank the tea. It was exactly right. I told her thank you. I meant to say something else. Something about boundaries. Something about asking first. But the words felt too confrontational. She'd just cleaned the flat. She'd made me tea. I felt ungrateful even thinking it. That night I lay in bed looking at my room. Everything was in a slightly different place. Not wrong, just different. My books were in height order now. My clothes were folded a different way. My makeup was arranged by type. It was better. It was more organized. But it wasn't how I'd left it. I got up and moved one book. Just one. I put it back where I'd had it. On its side on top of the others. Emma had stood it upright. I laid it back down. I got back into bed. 5 minutes later I got up and stood it upright again. I couldn't explain why. The next week Emma started checking in more. She'd text during the day, asking if I'd eaten lunch, asking if I'd remembered my meeting, asking if I was drinking enough water. I started replying less. She'd follow up. Just checking you saw this. Just making sure you're okay. I'd reply, I'm fine, thank you. She started knowing my schedule better than I did. She'd remind me about things I'd forgotten I'd mentioned. That call with my mum, that package I was expecting, that show I'd wanted to watch. She'd bring them up casually, mention them in passing, like she was just being thoughtful. I started feeling like I couldn't remember things on my own anymore. Like my brain had outsourced memory to Emma. I'd go to do something and realize she'd already done it. I'd go to plan something and realize she'd already planned it. I stopped trying. It was easier. My sister called. She asked why I hadn't replied to her messages. I checked my phone. 3 messages over 5 days. I'd read them all. I'd meant to reply. I just hadn't. I apologized. She asked if I was okay. I said yes. I said I'd been busy. She said I sounded different. I said I was fine. She asked if I was still enjoying the flat. I said yes. She asked about my flatmate. I said she was nice, really helpful. My sister was quiet for a moment, then she asked if I was happy. I said of course. Why wouldn't I be? She said she didn't know. She said I just seemed quiet. I told her I had to go. I said I'd call her next week. I didn't call her the next week. Emma reminded me. She said I'd mentioned I would. She said my sister had probably been expecting to hear from me. I said I'd forgotten. She said she could see that. She said she'd put a reminder in my phone for Thursday evening. I said, okay. Thursday evening, my phone buzzed. Call your sister. I stared at it for 10 minutes. Then I called. Emma asked if everything was okay with my sister. I asked how she knew I'd spoken to her. She said she'd heard me on the phone. She said I'd sounded upset. I wasn't upset. I told her I was fine. She said okay. She said she just wanted to check. She touched my arm, just briefly, just a small touch. That evening, Emma made lasagna. She plated mine and set it on the table with a fork and a napkin folded beside it. She poured me a glass of water. She asked if I wanted anything else. I said no. She sat down across from me with her own plate. We ate in silence. The lasagna was good, rich, perfectly seasoned. I told her it was delicious. She smiled. She said she'd found a new recipe. She said she thought I'd like it. I asked how she knew. She looked at me like it was obvious. She said she knew what I liked. I put my fork down. I asked her what I liked. She laughed. She thought I was joking. She said pasta, salmon, chicken, light seasoning, nothing too spicy. She listed it like she was reading from a manual. I picked my fork back up. I finished the lasagna. It tasted exactly like something I would have said I liked. But sitting there, I couldn't remember actually saying it. I couldn't remember the moment I told her I preferred light seasoning. I couldn't remember choosing chicken over beef. It had just become true somewhere along the way. She'd decided it, and I'd agreed, and now it was a fact about me. I started staying out later, not anywhere specific, just walking, going to the library, sitting in cafes. I'd come home around 9 or 10. Emma would ask where I'd been. I'd say out. She'd ask if I'd eaten. I'd say yes, even if I hadn't. She'd look at me like she didn't quite believe me. One night I came home at 11. Emma was still up. She was sitting in the living room with the lamp on. She said she'd been worried. She said I hadn't texted. I said I didn't know I needed to. She said she just liked to know I was safe. I said I was 34. She said she knew. She said she was just concerned. I sat down on the sofa. She asked where I'd been. I said nowhere. Just walking. She asked if something was wrong. I said no. She said I'd been acting strange lately. Distant. I said I was fine. She said I kept saying that. She said she didn't believe me. I looked at her sitting there in the lamplight. She looked genuinely worried, genuinely hurt. I felt terrible. I told her I was sorry. I said I'd been stressed at work. She nodded. She said she understood. She said she just wanted to help. She asked what she could do. I told her nothing. I said I just needed some space. She looked confused. She asked what kind of space. I didn't know how to answer. Space from her constant help. Space from her knowing everything. Space from feeling like I was living in a flat she was managing, and I was just occupying. I said space to think. She said, okay. She said she'd give me space. She stood up and went to her room. I sat there in the living room alone. The lamp was still on. I turned it off. I sat in the dark for 20 minutes. Then I went to bed. The next morning she didn't make me tea. She didn't ask about dinner. She stayed in her room while I got ready for work. I made my own tea. I burnt my toast. I left without saying goodbye. I felt relieved and guilty in equal measure. At work I couldn't concentrate. I kept thinking about the flat, about Emma, about how much easier everything had been with her help. about how much harder it felt now to do basic things on my own. I'd become dependent without realizing it. I got home that evening and Emma was in the kitchen. She said hello. I said hello. She asked if I wanted dinner. I said I'd sort myself out. She said she'd already made extra stir fry. She said it would just go to waste. I said, okay. She plated it. I ate it standing at the counter. She didn't sit with me. She went back to her room. I finished eating and washed my plate. I looked at the plants on the windowsill. They still looked healthy. Perfect. I touched one of the leaves. I couldn't remember the last time I'd watered them myself. Weeks. Maybe a month. That weekend I tried to establish a routine. My own routine. I got up early on Saturday, made coffee, sat in the living room with a book. Emma came out around 9. She asked if I wanted breakfast. I said I'd already eaten. I hadn't. She looked at my coffee mug. She didn't say anything. I went out around 11. Just to the shops. I bought things I didn't need. A candle, a magazine, a pot plant, a small cactus. I brought it home and put it on my windowsill. Emma saw it. She asked if I wanted her to add it to the watering schedule. I said no. I said I'd do it myself. She looked at the cactus. She said it didn't need much water. Once every 2 weeks, maybe less. I said I knew. She said okay. She went back to her room. I looked at the cactus. It was small and spiky and completely my own responsibility. On Sunday, I watered all the plants, the succulents and the cactus. Emma came into the kitchen while I was doing it. She watched me. She said I was giving them too much. She said she'd just watered them on Friday. I said I knew. I kept watering. She stood there for a moment. Then she left. Monday morning, I woke up to 3 texts from Emma. Reminder about my dentist follow-up. Reminder about the bins. Reminder that I'd said I'd call my mum. I read them and didn't reply. I got ready for work. She was in the kitchen when I came out. She asked if I'd seen her messages. I said yes. She asked if I'd booked the dentist. I said not yet. She said she could do it. I said no. She asked if I was sure. I said yes. She looked hurt. She said she was just trying to help. I said I knew. I said I appreciated it. I said I just needed to do some things myself. She asked why. It was a genuine question. She didn't understand. I didn't have a good answer. Because I felt like I was disappearing. Because I couldn't remember what I wanted anymore. Because every decision was being made for me. But I didn't say any of that. I said I just did. She said okay. She said she'd back off. She said she didn't realize she was being overbearing. I said she wasn't. She said clearly she was. I said it wasn't like that. She said then what was it like? I didn't answer. I left for work. That evening I came home to an empty flat. Emma had left a note, gone to her mum's for a few days. She said she thought I needed space. She said she'd see me next week. I read the note 3 times. I felt relieved. Then I felt awful. I made dinner, just pasta and sauce from a jar. It was terrible. Too salty. The pasta was overcooked. I ate it anyway. I washed up. I sat on the sofa. I tried to watch television. I couldn't focus. The flat felt too quiet. I watered the plants, all of them, even though they didn't need it. I just needed something to do, something that felt like caring. The cactus looked fine. The succulents looked healthy. Everything was fine. Everything was functioning, but nothing felt right. I went to my room and opened my wardrobe. My clothes were organized by color and type. I hadn't done that. Emma had done it when she cleaned. I pulled out a jumper. Gray. I put it back. I pulled out another. Blue. I stared at them. I couldn't remember which one I actually liked. The next day I called Claire. I asked if she wanted to meet for coffee. She said yes. We met in town on Wednesday evening. I told her about Emma, about the space, about the note. She listened. She didn't interrupt. When I finished, she asked what I wanted. I said I didn't know. She said that was the problem. She said I'd let Emma make all my decisions because it was easier. She said now I had to remember how to make them myself. I said I'd been making decisions fine before Emma moved in. She said then start doing it again. But it wasn't that simple. I'd forgotten how. Not forgotten exactly. Just stopped practicing. It was like a muscle I hadn't used. Claire said to start small. 1 decision a day. What to eat, what to wear, what to do with an evening. She said it would come back. Emma. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to take over. I just wanted to be helpful. I can see now I went too far. Narrator. I'm sorry too. I should have said something sooner. I appreciate everything you've done. Emma. Can we start over? Not completely, just adjust. Narrator. Yes. Emma. What would that look like? Narrator. Hands list. Here. Emma. I can do that. Narrator. We'll make new rules. She'll ask before doing things. I'll do more myself, cook separately sometimes. She'll stop checking my calendar. I'll water my plants. She'll help only when asked. Narrator. VO. It was awkward at first. We'd bump into each other in the kitchen and apologize too much. We'd both reach for things and pull back. She'd start to remind me of something and stop herself. I'd start to thank her and realize I didn't need to. It took time to find a rhythm. I started small, making my own breakfast, choosing my own clothes, forgetting things and having to deal with the consequences. I missed a dentist appointment. I had to rebook it myself. It felt terrible and necessary at the same time. The plants became a sort of marker. She still watered the 4 succulents. I watered the cactus. Sometimes I'd forget and it would look a bit withered. Sometimes I'd remember and it would perk up. It survived either way. It always did. 2 weeks later, I watered the succulents too. Just once. Emma saw me. She didn't say anything. She just watched. I finished and put the watering can down. She asked if I wanted to take over all of them. I said maybe, just sometimes. She said okay. One evening a few weeks later I came home to find Emma in the kitchen cooking. She asked if I wanted some. She said she'd made enough for 2. I said yes. She plated it and we sat at the table together. We talked about work and her mum and a film she'd watched. It felt normal, easy. After dinner, I made tea. I made 2 mugs. Weak for me, normal for her. I brought hers to her in the living room. Thank you. You're welcome. We sat together watching television. The lamp was on. The plants sat on the windowsill. Everything was exactly where it was supposed to be. Later that night I went to my room. My books were arranged how I'd left them. My makeup was scattered. My clothes were folded my way. Nothing was perfect, nothing was optimized. It was just mine. I got into bed and looked at the ceiling. I thought about how easy it had been to let go. How natural it felt to have someone else care. How quickly you can forget what you wanted when someone else keeps telling you what you need. I thought about the plants, about watering them on my own schedule, about letting them dry out sometimes, about that being okay. The next morning, Emma made tea. She made one mug, hers. I made mine. We moved around the kitchen in a careful dance, not avoiding each other, just making space. She asked if I had plans for the weekend. I said I might visit my sister. She said that sounded nice. I said I'd let her know. I didn't let her know. I just went. I texted when I got there. She texted back a thumbs up. Nothing else. When I came home Sunday evening, the flat was clean but not too clean. My bedroom door was closed. The plants looked healthy. My cactus looked a bit dry. I watered it. Just mine. Just enough. Emma came out of her room. She asked if I'd had a nice time. I said yes. She said good. She went back to her room. I stood in the kitchen looking at the small green watering can and my old plastic one side by side on the counter. Both there. Both available. Both choices I could make. I picked up the plastic one. I filled it with water. I watered the cactus. I looked at it sitting there on the windowsill. Small and spiky and imperfect. Surviving. Thriving in its own way. I put the watering can back down. I made tea. I drank it standing at the counter. It tasted exactly how I liked it, because I'd made it myself. A month passed. Then another. The flat found its equilibrium. Emma helped when I asked. I managed when I didn't. We cooked together sometimes. We ate separately others. The plants grew, some faster than others. The cactus stayed small and stubborn. I liked it that way. One morning I woke up and couldn't remember what day Emma watered the succulents. Tuesday and Friday. Or was it Monday and Thursday? I realized it didn't matter. I didn't need to know her schedule anymore. I had my own. I got up and made coffee. Emma was already in the kitchen. She said good morning. I said good morning. She asked if I wanted toast. I said yes. She made 2 slices. I made 2 slices. We ate them standing at the counter talking about nothing important. The lamp was on in the living room. Someone had left it on overnight. I didn't know who. It didn't matter. I turned it off. The morning light came through the window. The plants sat there in silhouette. All of them. Mine and hers and somehow ours. I touched the cactus. Just lightly. Just checking. It felt firm. Healthy. I'd watered it 3 days ago. I remembered. Not because someone reminded me. Just because I did. I left for work. Emma stayed home. The flat stayed quiet. Everything in its place. Everything where it chose to be.